Good evening, YouTube. I know I'm very late, but I do apologize for being so late with my SmackDown NXT update, but I worked doubles all weekend, so I still hadn't even watched SmackDown. I watched it tonight, so hence which is why you were getting your update tonight. NXT last Wednesday wasn't too bad. They started out with a bunch of women coming out to the ring because they had Rhea Ripley open up the show. So Rhea Ripley was in the ring. Then Toni Storm came out. Candice LeRae came out. Bianca Belair came out. Io Shirai came out. And Kaylee Ray, who is the NXT UK Women's Champion. Toni Storm also is on NXT UK. Apparently, those two were going to have a match at NXT UK Liverpool, which was on this past weekend. That was the takeover. So basically, everybody was talking about Rhea Ripley and her new title and how they wanted it. That ended up turning into a six-person tag. We had Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm, and Candice LeRae tag teaming against Bianca Belair, Io Shirai, and Kaylee Ray. There was some miscommunication between Bianca Belair and Io Shirai. They ended up kind of having a little bit of heat between each other during the match, which led to Team Ripley winning. So that was that. We saw Tommaso Ciampa do a promo on his match with Adam Cole. They started the Dusty Rhodes Classic again. They had two tag team matches tonight. We saw Imperium, which is kind of like the NXT UK's version of Undisputed Era. So they have four members and very similar to Undisputed Era. They're just Imperium. So we saw Mark Andrews, Fabian Egner, and Marcel Barthel versus the Forgotten Sons. And they ended up defeating the Forgotten Sons, so they will be moving on in the brackets. We saw Austin Theory. We saw him a few weeks ago. He won a match with Jaquan Wild. Really wasn't too bad of a match. It was very quick. We saw another Dusty Rhodes Classic, Undisputed Era against Gallus, which is another NXT UK team. Of course, Undisputed Era won with help from the other members of Undisputed Era. They did get involved, so that led to Undisputed Era moving up in the brackets. We saw Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor going back and forth on mics in the ring, talking about who is the better NXT leader. For those of you who may know, there was a tag team named Time Splitters that involved Kushida and Alex Shelley. Apparently, Kushida is part of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. He did not have a partner up until last week. They announced the return of Alex Shelley, so we will see the reunion of Time Splitters. And we saw Mia Yim go against Kaden Carter, and she did get the win via pinfall. There was, at the end of that match, a kind of a promo. I'm not really sure. I hadn't really heard of them. I heard of them previously. So Robbie E. of Impact Wrestling is now Robert Stone, and he's apparently creating a stable on NXT. And his first charge is Kelsey Green. Uh, don't really know much about her, but she is supposed to be making a debut shortly, I believe. We saw a four-man tag for the main event. It was Keith Lee, Cameron Grimes, Dominic Dijakovic, and Damian Priest, the winner to face North American Championship. North American Champion on January 22nd, and Keith Lee won that match. So we will be seeing Keith Lee versus North American Champion on January 22nd. And that was pretty much it for NXT. It's a fairly decent show. This has been better, but it wasn't bad. At least we saw the Dusty Rhodes Classic come back. So for SmackDown, they started off the show with Miz TV, and his guest was John Morrison. So it's official, John Morrison is back, and by the looks of it, they are going to be a heel tag team like they were a few years ago. Morrison just basically said he was disappointed in the universe for booing The Miz when he had one bad day. It was then the New Day came out, a little bit of a back and forth between Miz and Kingston, and we are led into a rematch from last week between Kofi and The Miz. The Miz did win that match after Big E got taken out by Morrison, which distracted Kofi. So that was that. That's probably going to lead to a tag team match in the next couple of weeks. They did announce at the end of the show that Morrison would be facing Big E next week. We saw Alexa Bliss versus Mandy Rose. So before this match, Mandy Rose presented Otis with a I'm sorry cake for allowing Ziggler to stomp on his mother's fruitcake. So during this match, when Alexa Bliss had the upper hand, Heavy Machinery came out, distracted Bliss, which allowed Rose to roll her up for the pin. There really wasn't much to the match itself. They kind of went back and forth, kind of both changed control of the match, but that was pretty much it. There was really no big event. And then we were supposed to see Lacey Evans versus Sasha Banks. Evans came out to the ring. Bayley went up on the Titantron and said, unfortunately, Sasha had some studio time and had to finish her rap album, so she was not there tonight. Evans kind of blew off the explanation, challenged Bayley to a championship match, and Bayley said, I'm not your snot-nosed kid, I don't have to listen to you, which caused Evans to go out back. Bayley got the kind of attacked her from behind. They went back and forth, and then Bayley ended up running away. So not too much there. That just intrigues the rivalry between those two. Then we saw a non-title match between Braun Strowman and Shinsuke Nakamura, which much versus the efforts of Sami Zayn and Cesaro, the two of them kept getting involved, trying to allow Shinsuke, who was not faring well against Strowman, to get the upper hand. Strowman still defeated Cesaro. So now it was a non-title match, but now they're saying that that would possibly make Strowman number one contender and would force Nakamura to defend his title. We saw the Usos come back again. They had a tag team match versus King Corbin and Dolph Ziggler. The Usos were in control in the beginning. And then we saw the Revival come out and distract them. When the Revival were making their way back up the ramp, this brought out Roman Reigns, who took them two out. The Usos kind of got control back, but not too much. It did go back and forth. And then we saw Reigns kind of getting involved in the match, not by his own actions, but we saw Robert Roode return, which allowed Corbin, Revival, Ziggler, and Roode get the upper hand on the Usos and Reigns. They did beat down Reigns and the Usos, and they attempted to powerbomb Reigns through the table. It didn't break. This caused Ziggler to do a jumping elbow onto Reigns to break the table. So, not too bad of a SmackDown. We've seen better. We did see the Usos back in action, saw the return of Morrison, but other than that, both shows were kind of like a B type of show. All right, peeps. So hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you on Wednesday with my Monday Night Raw update. And other than that, I will see you peeps later. Peace out. Have a good night. Bye.